Congratulations on the purchase of your new Carousel USA parking slider. And welcome to this video, a step-by-step guide to help you correctly assemble your slider. Before we get started, you'll need 2 to 3 people to install the slider and a few essential items. The tools required include a 3/8" drive ratchet, an impact driver, a 3/16 masonry drill bit, metric hex drive sockets, and a hammer drill. You'll also need a shop vacuum, a 5/16 nut driver bit, and optionally a 5mm metric Allen T-handle. You will also find this list along with all the numbered slider parts in the instruction manual. Before we get started, it's important as you unpack all the slider parts to inspect them carefully to make sure they've arrived safely and undamaged. Once you've done this, we're ready to get started. But before we do, it's worth pointing out that for your convenience, each of the following instructional steps match exactly the steps you'll find in the instruction manual. The first step is to choose a smooth and flat installation site that is capable of handling the load. The floor height deviation cannot be more than 1/8 of an inch, so it's important to smooth out any cracks or uneven surfaces. Please note that the site does not need to be level. If installed on an uneven surface, the slider tracks will bend and flex, forcing the slider to collide with the floor. The slider can be installed on slopes up to 1.2 degrees, which, for a 20-foot track, would be a maximum elevation of 5 inches. If your elevation exceeds 1.2 degrees, please contact us and we can help you find a solution. Once you've done this, place all 6 tracks on the installation site, making sure they're parallel with each other, like this. The next step is to start anchoring the tracks to the floor. Using a hammer drill with a 3/16 masonry bit, bore holes into the floor matching the holes in the tracks. These holes need to be 1/2 inch deeper than the screw embedment. As you drill each hole, use the shop vac to suck up dust and floor particles. Next, insert the pointed end of the 1/4 inch anchors into the holes and fasten down the tracks. It's important to drive slowly, allowing the threads to tap into the concrete, and be sure to place the end stops on both tracks. With the track now anchored to the floor, you need to install the limit switch flags. These are located here and here. You can also find a drawing of them in the PS1 installation manual. Using 2/4 inch anchors, fasten the limit switch flags to the floor. Next, lay out center cross member assemblies onto the tracks. It is important that the motor cross member is placed on the track closest to the wall where the control box will be located, with the motor facing the wall. Cut and remove zip ties holding the limit switch sensor and bracket. The zip ties are only needed during shipping and transporting. The ramp cross member must be positioned so the 4 ramp tabs are facing outwards. Now it's time to assemble the slider platforms. But before you do, it's important not to tighten any of the hardware during this step. Tightening will create problems later when you need to align the components. To assemble the platform, connect platforms A and B with a platform connector. Using the M8 screws to fasten the platform assemblies, threading all the connector screws, but don't tighten them. Next, install the platforms onto the cross members. But first, ensure that the limit switch brackets and sensors are clear of the platform mounting surfaces. Place one platform onto the cross members and align the top holes with the corresponding snap and nuts located on the top of the cross members. Next up, loosely thread the M8 screws into the top and outside faces of the platform. Install the connector brackets and again loosely install the M8 screws. Repeat this again for the second platform. Once all M8 screws are threaded, proceed to tighten them down snug, but be careful not to over-tighten them. With the platforms and cross members securely assembled, it's time to install the limit sensors. Reach under the slider assembly at the limit switch location and fasten the limit switch bracket with the M8 screws. Adjust the limit switch sensor so that the distance from the bottom of the sensor to the top of the limit switch flag is 5/8 of an inch, or if the limit switch flag is not nearby, the distance from the bottom of the sensor to the floor should be 1 inch or 25 millimeters. Next up, you will need to install wheel stops. Simply remove the 8 screws at the very front of the parking slider and install the 2 wheel stops. Once this is done, reinstall the screws and tighten them snugly. With the platform now in place, it's time to install the ramps. Start by removing the locking pins from the strut ends and put them to the side. Position the ramp assembly in line with the cross-member tabs, with the top edge slightly lifted above the platform surface. Firmly press the socket of each strut into the ball until it snaps into place, and then reinstall the locking pins that were removed initially. Next, lower the ramp pivots with the tab holes, aligning them as you do so, and then loosely insert M8 screws on both sides of the ramp. Once all M8 screws have been threaded, then you can proceed to tighten them snugly. Again, do not over-tighten. Repeat this step for both ramps. Now it's time to install and power the control box. Mount the control box to the wall adjacent to the motor. Simply line up the mounting holes with your desired location, pre-drill the screw holes, and screw it in. Now you can connect the motor. Open the control box using either a coin or a flat screwdriver. Pass the cable from the motor into the box through the cord grip and connect the 8 wires by matching colors, black with black, white with white, etc. It's important to keep the excess cable away from the tracks, as we do not want it tangling or getting run over. Adjust the cable to the ideal length and then tighten with a cord grip. Next, plug the power cord into a 120-volt outlet. The next step is to check slider travel and limits. It's essential to ensure the travel path is clear and free from people, pets, and objects in both directions at all times. To test this, twist the left-right switch on the control panel and move the parking slider carefully to each end of the tracks. But be careful to make sure the slider is not driven off the tracks. Do not load any vehicles at this time or allow people to ride the slider. If you do, serious injuries may occur. Next, take up any additional slack from the cord by moving the parking slider to the extreme ends of the track and pulling excess cord inside of the control box. You can neatly loop the excess cable with cable ties and tighten the cord grip on the control box. Now carefully move the parking slider over the limit switch flags. Test that the parking slider will stop and only allow motion in the other direction. You can adjust the stop motion location by moving the limit switch flag. Remove the anchors and relocate the flag to your desired end of travel limit. Reinstall floor hardware. The construction is now complete and you can enjoy your Carousel USA parking slider. For more information on how to maintain your slider, please consult the instruction manual for more specifics. If you need more assistance or would like to provide feedback on our products, please contact one of our customer service representatives at 866-796-5975 or visit us online at www.carousel-usa.com.